one thing I want to point out is that no introduction is better than another. It all depends on what you're trying to do, what your topic, what your thesis, what your argument is, and what you're trying to say. Your thesis statements reflect what you want to argue in your paper. So you need to ask yourself, like, what do I want my reader to think? What do I want them to know? And what do I want them to think before my thesis or before my paper in general? So one student, and even so, even if two people have the exact same thesis, they might not choose the same introduction technique, and that's totally fine. What are you going, they might say, oh, I have a really good story I want to tell, or another one might say, I really want to describe this thing to make my readers feel a certain way. And just like I showed you with some of them, they can be combined. I combined the analogy with incident. The car accident I totally did like I experienced. The dude was drunk. That's another reason why a lot of people ignored him is because they were like, "Ooh, he's too drunk." Anyways, that's enough about my thing. So I've showed you some examples, and so I want you to keep in mind that like you don't have to choose just one. I also want to point out in these samples, look at how much detail I provide. Notice how they don't follow or like they don't have topic sentence, evidence, commentary, concluding statement. They don't have that. They do have transitions. They do have a lot of detail so that the audience might feel a certain way about something, but there isn't, you don't, what am I trying to say here? They aren't one or two sentences long. You are to provide much more detail to help your reader be prepared for your thesis. I also want to point out that you always want to make sure that you transition into your thesis. You want to make sure that you transition into your thesis. So your introduction technique should not introduce ideas and then boom, you slap them with your thesis. They should be prepared for your thesis. If your thesis seems like it's coming out of the blue, that either means one of two things. One, you have you don't have a transition between your introduction and your thesis, or your introduction technique is so off topic that it's confusing. So I want you to think about what technique you might see yourself using. This answer doesn't necessarily have to be what you're actually going to use, but it could be something along the lines of like what you might consider using. Because then we're going to talk about conclusion.